your favorite math professor here, Dr. Tarcia Huber, and I'm back with another video. In this video, we are going to be talking about the distributive property, okay? Yes, say it with me. Distributive property, okay? The distributive property, you use it anytime you have a number or a variable outside of a parentheses, okay? So for example, I have A parentheses B plus C. Distributive means you're going to multiply, all right? So basically what that means is I'm going to multiply A times B plus C, but I have to distribute that A to both the B and also the C. So what I end up doing is I multiply A times B. That dot means multiplication. I keep that sign in the middle, the plus, and then I multiply A times C. Okay, so I take whatever is in front of the parentheses and I multiply by everything inside the parentheses. And it doesn't matter what side the number or variable is on. So even if it's on the outside like this, B plus C times A, if it's on the right side, you will still do the same thing. You will multiply that A in and multiply by the B and the C. Okay, so let's look at some examples. All right, for this first example, we're going to simplify 4 times x plus 3. So we have a number that's outside the parentheses, so that lets me know we need to use the distributive property. So basically, we're going to take this 4 and we're going to distribute it to everything inside the parentheses. So we're going to do the 4 distributed to the x, and we're also going to do the 4 distributed to the 3. So that ends up being 4 times x. We keep that same sign, plus 4 times 3. All right? 4 times x is just 4x, and 4 times 3 is 12. And so what you end up getting is your answer ends up being 4x plus 12. Now, basically, when you simplify, all you're doing is getting rid of the parentheses, okay? So let's look at another example. Okay, in this second example, we want to simplify. Now, that's a negative sign outside the parentheses, x squared plus 3x minus 5. Now, it doesn't look like we have a number or a variable outside of the parentheses, but we actually do. That negative is actually a negative 1. So that's an understood 1 outside of that parentheses. So that's a negative 1 right there. And basically what you want to do is you want to take that negative and distribute it inside the parentheses. And basically whenever you have a negative outside of a parentheses, you're going to multiply everything by negative 1. But the only thing it does is it changes the sign of everything inside the parentheses. So that x squared becomes a negative x squared. That positive 3x becomes a negative 3x, and that minus 5 becomes a plus 5, okay? So once you have a negative outside the parentheses, just remember it changes the sign of everything inside the parentheses, okay? Let's look at another example. Okay, in example 3, we want to simplify negative 2 parentheses x plus 3y plus 4. And so what that means is negative 2 times all those things in parentheses. So this time we have a number and it's negative. So you're going to do both. Change the signs of everything in parentheses and you're going to multiply by 2. So we're going to take this negative 2 and we're going to distribute it inside the parentheses. So negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times 3y. So that's going to be plus a negative 2 times 3y. And then we're going to have plus a negative 2 times 4. All right? And so you end up getting negative 2 times x, which is negative 2x. Negative 2 times 3y is a negative 6y. And then negative 2 times 4 is a negative 8. Okay? So basically, all of those signs in the parentheses were positive, but that negative made them all negative. And so we also multiply each of those by 2. So your final answer ends up being negative 2x minus 6y minus 8. All right. I got 2 more examples for you. Let's go. Okay, for example 4, these last 2 examples, they get a little bit longer, a little bit more involved. So this one has 2 sets of parentheses. So basically you have to apply the distributive property to both sets of parentheses, okay? This says 4 times 3x minus 2 minus 2 times 2x plus 3. So I'm going to distribute both, okay? Distribute the 4 first. So that means I need to do 4 times 3x and 4 times negative 2. So I'm going to write that out. That's equal to 4 times 3x minus 4 times 2. Keep that sign in the middle. All right? Now I'm going to distribute this negative 2. That is going to be a negative 2 times 2x and a negative 2 times 3. All right, and now you want to go through and simplify that. 4 times 3x is 12x. 4 times 8 is 8. 4 times 2 is 8. And so you keep that sign. That's a minus 8. That's a minus 4 times a positive 2, or vice versa. But that sign stays negative. Negative 2 times 2x is negative 4x. And then negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. All right. Then the next thing you need to do, because there are multiple variables, you have to combine your like terms. And your like terms are the 12x and the minus 4x. 12x minus 4x gives you 8x. And then your other like terms are the negative 8 and the negative 6. Negative 8 minus 6 gives you a negative 14. All right. There are no more like terms, so your final answer ends up being 8x minus 14. All right, in this last example, it's kind of like the last one where we had 2 sets of parentheses, but notice this time we have more terms in those parentheses. But regardless of how many terms you have, you still take that number that's outside the parentheses and you multiply by everything inside the parentheses. So we have 2 times x squared plus 3x minus 5 minus, that's basically a minus 1 times 3x squared minus 4x plus 2. So you're going to take both of those numbers outside the parentheses and distribute it to everything inside the parentheses. So starting with the 2, you're going to get 2 times x squared plus 2 times 3x plus 2 times a negative 5. That negative is in front of that 5, so it stays in front of that 5. All right. Then you're going to get minus 1. Well, remember what the minus 1 does? It just changes the sign of everything in those parentheses. So all I'm going to do in the second set of parentheses is just change the sign of everything. That 3x squared was positive, so now it becomes negative. That 4x was negative, so now it becomes positive. And that 2 was positive, so now it becomes negative. And so now I'm going to simplify. 2 times x squared is 2x squared. 2 times 3x is 6x. And 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. And I'm going to drop that minus 3x squared plus that 4x minus 2 down. And so the last thing I have to do is combine like terms. So my first like terms are the 2x squared minus 3x squared. I'm just grouping those together so you can see what the like terms are. My second set of like terms is the 6x and the 4x. And then my last set of like terms is the negative 10 and the negative 2. And so 2x squared minus 3x squared gives me a negative x squared. 6x plus 4x gives me a 10x. And negative 10 minus 2 gives me a negative 12. And there are no more like terms. There are no more like terms. So that is my final answer. Negative x squared plus 10x minus 12. Okay. So I've showed you multiple ways to use the distributive property. And basically, if you have any questions, just put them in the comments and I will respond. And if you want to get some practice, you can read the description to get the information on how to log into my free course and practice along with me as you study and prepare for this TSI exam. All right, thank you for watching. And if these videos are helping, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and I'll see you in the next video.